Alright, hello and welcome to the digital sculpting class number 5. Today we will be talking about the head, and especially about the general proportions, then how these apply to our characters, and in the practical you will actually sculpt the heads of your characters. But first, let's talk about the general anatomical rules we should keep in mind when sculpting. Let's break down the head into the most simple shapes, and you can see an example of that here, a simplified blockout of the head. And one very common beginner mistake is to keep the head as a perfect circular balloon, like this. However, in reality, the head has lots of different shapes. First of all, the head is not like a perfect sphere from the front, but it's like these parts on the sides are cut off. Then if you look from the top, the head is more shaped like an egg, with its widest point more to the back of the head. And these kind of rules can be observed when looking at the blockout. However, they are very well explained on this amazing cheat. It's provided by Rapinem, and I found it online on Pinterest, and I think it explains very well what kind of rules there exist. It especially says in the top part that this is for the average kind of specifically male generalized white European proportions. And all of these are just general rules, and we see with a few examples that these rules don't have to apply to our characters. These are just general rules, and some designs break them intentionally to create character in the face. But first, let's look at the general proportions. And here it also says the ones in blue are the most important, and the other ones can be played around with a lot more. So first of all, the head is generally separated in 3 equal segments, one here at the brow, one at the hairline, one at the tip of the nose, and then the last one at the chin. Then it can be divided in halves, and the ear hole is here in the center, and then the ear extends to the backside, but it starts here in the center. Then we also roughly align the top of the ears, usually with the brows, and then the bottom of the ears with the nose. Then very important too is that the neck is at an angle. First of all this, and what most people do is they start the neck right here at where the jaw ends. However, if you observe this image, you can clearly see that it kind of splits the jaw in half and starts way more at the chin than we might think. And then this one is also a mistake that I did a lot, is to kind of sculpt the nose and the lips and the chin, everything just in kind of one line. However, this is also at an angle. This is also part important. You can read through them at your own pace. I will just highlight the ones that I personally found very much enlightening and help me understand what to look out for when sculpting heads. One very general rule that you might already have heard of is that between the 2 eyes, you usually have roughly the space of 1 additional eye, and this applies to all the features that kind of go below here. This one we already saw in the left image, this one too, and yeah, this one should also be kept in mind. The corners of the mouth roughly align with the iris. So if your mouth extends way far here, you get more of a creepy smile. And if you have the corners of the mouth way more here to the center of the face, then the character looks like he has very, very small mouth. And this one should be important too, and can be seen here as well, that the mouth is not 100% at the center between the chin and the mouth and the nose, but it's moved slightly upwards. And a few more rules you can see here as well, that the head is more like an egg shape, and the most outward point is here in the face up there, and then the face tilts a bit to the chin. But as I said before, these general rules can be broken, and in very popular designs too, they are intentionally broken. One of the golden standards that we just heard before with you can divide the head into 3 parts and they're kind of split evenly. You can see here with Thanatos that they intentionally broke this rule by giving him this very large chin. And here we can see different examples where this very fundamental rule is played around with to create interesting shapes. And here as well in the profile view. Then talking about the mouth. And I know the mouth is a very difficult shape because it very often just looks like you can kind of call it a duck mouth, where you have just the lips extrude from a flat plane. However, this image breaks down quite nicely how we have this very, like this shape like a barrel. And on top of that, we build the lips, and the top lip can be simplified into this cylinder. And then for the bottom part of the lip, we have a more complex shape going on. So we have these 2 cylinders, and then the chin comes in here like a sphere, and it creates this flow, this W flow for the bottom part of the lip that then flows into the chin. And here we can see it in a realistic human sculpt. One more thing that kind of was eye-opening to me is this kind of distance between the top lip and the bottom lip, and the same applies too to the top eyelid and the lower eyelid. I was very often tempted to have them here align at the front. However, keep in mind that there's like a slight difference, an overhang between these in these 2 situations. Then about the nose. The nose is also a very complex shape, can be difficult to sculpt, but I'm sure you will do great. One thing that you need to look out for when sculpting the nose is the nose does not sit on a flat surface either. We also have this bend, and then we need to move the nostrils inwards into the face. Sometimes when I see sculpts, the nostrils kind of end here, because here is where the where the plane of the face is, and it kind of sits on top. However, the nostrils, they come quite a bit into the face, and you can see that here too, that they don't sit on a flat plane, but it's kind of angled here. And then the nostrils also, they curl into the face again. They don't stop here, but they come inwards here. And then about the ear. Oh, the ear is a complex shape, but if you know what you look out for, then it becomes more easy. So we have the helix, this big shape up here, and we see that even in the most simplest designs of the ear. This one is very important. And then another one that is also very often shown, but in a simplified version, is this Y shape. And all of these come together here in this bottom part, and this shape is also, even in the most simplified versions, it's very like the proportions change quite a bit, and the anatomy too. So depending on which reference you have for the ear, you can focus on very different parts of the ear and still keep it recognizable. And lastly, I'd like to talk about the eyes. So the eyes are also a very complex shape, and also your character can look quite creepy if you kind of tweak it in the wrong direction. So here I want to show you, like, if you're sculpting with an iris in place, then these general rules apply if you want to create either a more sleepy, tired look, like the neutral awake look, then slightly alerted, and then this is like grave danger and fear. And you can really tell from here. And if you know these rules, it makes it easier to make your own eye sculpt look less creepy. And then for the mouth, I have additional references down here too. And for the eyes, I also have additional references up here. All right, then let's talk about our characters. When we look at the faces, we can see that she's kind of looking a bit angry and he's smirking quite a lot. And usually in 3D production, we want the characters to have a neutral expression so that they can have the full range of motion. However, in this sculpting class, we will only focus on this expression that is shown in the turntable. This will save us quite some time, otherwise you would have need to imagine the neutral expression and then bring it into pose in a later stage. So to kind of avoid this extra work, we will sculpt straight up the expressions that the characters are showing in the turnaround sheet. However, under one condition, to save you guys the extra amount of work, I need you to sculpt this one in a symmetry, because here you can see the smirk is asymmetrical, but we want to save us the time, so we sculpt the expression with symmetry, and same goes for her. This file will be provided in the class, so let's get sculpting.